Welcome into another episode of We're Not Doing a Podcast. Jarrett, a little bit on the irritable side last week. How are you feeling going into this week?
Feeling a little bit better. Well, last week, because I was on the irritable side, I've had this bad cough for a few weeks and still not completely healed. So I've been on a whole bunch of steroids, and steroids side effects, they kind of make you a little irritable. They kind of make you a little moody. Those are one of the side effects. So actually during one of the episodes last week, I decided to throw my pen across my apartment because I was just getting angry at the thought of hearing anyone talk to me. So, but in a little bit of a better mood today. The voice is still not great, but hopefully on the mend. Hopefully getting a little bit better. We shall see.
Well, hopefully the New York Jets could say the same, as they're trying to get a little better, but that's probably not the case if they continue to throw Zach Wilson under center as the starting quarterback. So, Jarrett, we are going to start this episode off with a game. I am going to name 5 random quarterbacks in the NFL, all on rosters. 4 out of 5 of them, you probably were not quite sure are on an NFL roster, or you may not even know who they are. Now, for the first of the 5 people on the Green Bay Packers, backup quarterback, Sean Clifford. Would you rather Sean Clifford start over Zach Wilson for the Jets?
Sean Clifford, no. I mean, we saw what he looked like at Penn State. He was a disaster at Penn State. So absolutely not on Sean Clifford. I mean, when it comes to this game that you want to play, there's plenty of other options of which the Jets could have had. But Sean Clifford, absolutely not. No, Sean Clifford stinks. Zach Wilson isn't any good, but he is better than Sean Clifford. I really hope you're not willing to say you'd rather have Sean Clifford start over Zach Wilson, because Clifford's terrible.
I would not, but Zach Wilson is definitely the worst consistent starting quarterback in the NFL this year, possibly the worst starting quarterback to ever start 30 games.
Yes.
So I think it's in the conversation of how bad it could be, and that is why I will be bringing to my next quarterback on the New Orleans Saints, Jake Haener from Fresno State.
No.
Jake Haener.
I still rather have Zach Wilson. I mean, there's a lot of other options, whatever is on this list. I mean, there's a lot of better options than whoever these guys you just want to keep rattling off. But I don't know who Jake Haener is. So if I don't have any idea who he is on this planet Earth, I'm not going to say him. I'd rather have guys like Gardner Minshew, Jacoby Brissett, Teddy Bridgewater, Josh Dobbs, guys who could have been had by the Jets, who are legitimate backup quarterbacks. But whoever that name is, no, I'll go with Zach Wilson. I mean, sure, I'll take Zach Wilson over Jake Haener. If that's the name. Sure. Give me Zach Wilson over the 2 you mentioned.
Jake Browning on the Cincinnati Bengals.
Give me Zach Wilson. Would you rather have Jake Browning over Zach Wilson?
No, I just want to show that, hey, it could be a lot worse, and there's a reason why they are sticking with Wilson. Finally, one other random name, Jake Browning. Oh, sorry, Easton Stick on the Los Angeles Chargers.
No, yeah, I'll still take Zach Wilson.
Do you know who Easton Stick is?
It doesn't matter if I know who he is or not, and I don't know who he is, and I'll take Zach Wilson over him. But the point of this conversation should be that heads need to roll at Florham Park with the New York Jets, because they had ample opportunities to go address quarterback 2 in the offseason. Immediately after Aaron Rodgers got hurt, 4 plays into the season, and leading up to the trade deadline a few weeks ago. Look at Josh Dobbs with the Vikings. You could have had him for a 6th or 5th round pick if you wanted to up the offer that the Vikings made. Gardner Minshew, you could have signed him. Teddy Bridgewater. It's just ridiculous that there are a legitimate number of backup quarterback options that the Jets could have had to save this season. And the reason why I'm still so furious about this is we saw this exact same playbook happen last year. And Robert Saleh and the offensive staff and general manager Joe Douglas decided to do nothing, absolutely nothing. They have literally put forth the definition of insanity by trotting out the same thing over and over and over again and expecting different results. And now this week, they make some changes with releasing Michael Carter. Like, oh, now they're making some changes. This offensive staff with the Jets is totally incompetent, and I'm done with Robert Saleh as the head coach of the New York Jets. He needs to go. He could build up a good defense, but him as a head coach is a total zero at this point. So if you want to ask me on a scale of 1 to 10 how much I despise Robert Saleh right now, it's a 10. How about you when it comes to the overall state of what is going on with this quarterback situation with the Jets?
Well, I have one more quarterback to propose.
Oh,
Giants
sure.
quarterback, Tommy DeVito.
No, I'll take Zach Wilson over Tommy DeVito. I mean, Zach Wilson makes his bed. I would assume Zach Wilson makes his bed because his parents live out in Utah and he's living in New Jersey. And we've seen Tommy DeVito, he could barely complete a forward pass.
My point is that this is the problem that the Jets are in, because there were a lot of quarterbacks that they could have taken, and Josh Dobbs, for me, is the greatest example of how Joe Douglas failed within the season to make a big deal, because look what happened to the Vikings. Cousins is hurt right away. They get Dobbs, and they're in the playoff conversation. The Jets have no excuses when you look at what happened with the Vikings, because Aaron Rodgers went hurt within week 1 in the first 4 plays. Zach Wilson, yes, he's not as bad as some of those other guys, but those other guys that I mentioned are third-string quarterbacks. So the fact that we have to mention whether you'd want a third-string quarterback over Zach Wilson shows the state that the Jets are in. And it is inexcusable by Joe Douglas. And to answer your question, as you would know, Jarrett, but the audience does not, I hated the Saleh hire from the start. The NFL, you succeed with a head coach if you get a hot offensive mind, someone that is with a team that was red hot for the last few years, is on the rise, does not have head coaching experience. You hire them, you build an offense around them, and that's how you eventually win a Super Bowl. Bill Belichick in the last few years is the only coach to go against that trend. So when you hired Saleh, and then bringing in a potential rookie quarterback that year and then draft Zach Wilson with the second pick, it's a recipe for disaster. And I think it's safe to say it was worse than we could ever imagine. There's a chance that Wilson wouldn't have succeeded. And we saw what happened with Sam Darnold when he had to play under Adam Gase. But Zach Wilson in the conversation among the worst starting quarterbacks to make 30 NFL starts is just truly pathetic by the entire Jets organization. And that is why it is so difficult to believe in this franchise moving forward with the consistent mistakes that they make.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the name Adam Gase, because Adam Gase is the only offensive coach that the Jets hired in the past 20 plus years. It just goes to show you how fucking inept the New York Jets are as a franchise. And quite frankly, I am not going to have the mental illness anymore of being sucked in to this franchise. I'm always going to be a fan. I will tune in on Sunday when the Jets play the Buffalo Bills. I will watch the game because that's what fans do. But I am not being suckered in to the false playoff hopes of this team, because we saw on Monday Night Football, the Buffalo Bills, they lost to the Denver Broncos. And you got people on social media saying, well, the Jets still kind of have a chance. Well, by the mathematics, yes, the Jets have a chance, but hope is gone. You have no hope when you can't score a goddamn touchdown. I mean, the Jets, it's remarkable. They can't score touchdowns. It's the most incompetent offense I've ever seen. And what's crazy, Mark, the Jets' offensive incompetence, seems to get worse and worse each and every year. It's like 2016, we say the Jets' offense is the worst of all time. Nope. Well, let's go to 2017. Oh, nope, it's worse in 2018. 2019, it could be even worse. Oh, no, 2022, it was the worst of all time. 2023, it's the worst offense of all time in terms of numbers when it comes to third down percentage, red zone percentage. It's just insane. We truly are sick mental patients for continuing to watch this franchise and believe in this franchise. Me more so than you. I will say you are smarter than me because you were a little more rational.
The day they hired Adam Gase, that was the day I officially said, I'm done. That was it. Like you said, the first offensive coach since Rich Kotite, the worst Jets coach ever, potentially until Adam Gase. And given Adam Gase's reputation in Miami, it made no sense to make that hire. Yeah, the offensive part was great, but his reputation in Miami was pretty irrehensible. So to make that hire was just so tone deaf. And that to me was when I completely lost faith in the Jets. And I'm very glad, Jarrett, that you have finally got to that stage. So a team that may potentially have the number 2 pick in next year's NFL draft and is hoping not to make the same mistake that the Jets did are their in-stadium neighbors, the New York Giants. If the season ended today, the New York Giants would hold the 2nd pick for the first time since 2018. Before that, they drafted Lawrence Taylor. Saquon Barkley, of course, was drafted in 2018 by the G-Men. Should the Giants be all in on DrakeMaye if they have the 2nd overall pick, or should they look elsewhere like one of the 2 offensive linemen or Marvin Harrison Jr.?
If the Giants have the 2nd overall pick and DrakeMaye's on the board, they 100% should take DrakeMaye. And I'll even go a step further. I think if DrakeMaye is the number 2 pick and Caleb Williams is the number 1 pick, I very well think we could have a repeat of the 2022 draft in which the Carolina Panthers regret taking Bryce Young over CJ Stroud because I'm all
2023 draft. It's really confusing.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. But I think DrakeMaye is going to be better than Caleb Williams. I'll go ahead and say it. I think Caleb Williams isn't made out for New York. There's just something off about him. And there's a lot of things, even in all Caleb Williams' highlights, it's him scrambling around. You got to sometimes stay in the pocket and be able to deliver passes. He is at times. But to answer your question, with the number 2 pick, if the Giants have it and DrakeMaye's on the board, you don't even think twice. You turn the card in, you bring him to New York, you give Brian Dable and Joe Shane their guy who they can truly develop, because I understand they signed Daniel Jones, but they really were left with no other option. What were they going to do? Just decide to let Daniel Jones leave as a free agent and say, Tyrod Taylor, you're our starting quarterback for 2023? You couldn't do that coming off a playoff win. So they were caught between a rock and a hard place. They signed Daniel Jones to a deal in which they can get out of after 2 years. They'll be able to get out of it after the 2024 season. You draft DrakeMaye, and if Daniel Jones comes back from his ACL injury at some point next year, he looks average, which is exactly what he is. You hand the keys over to DrakeMaye, week 7, week 8, and he's your franchise quarterback moving forward, because Daniel Jones just isn't all that good. I get it. If you give him Marvin Harrison Jr., he'll look better, but you need the big-time quarterback. And Daniel Jones isn't a big-time quarterback. I think DrakeMaye has the potential to be, and I think Brian Dable and staff would be a whole lot more excited to get to work with their own guy moving forward.
If I told you that a certain person on this podcast that does not have the Empire State Building in their window did some research the other night and looked at some of the advanced analytics of college quarterbacks since 2004 and looked at where DrakeMaye ranks in comparison with those stats such as EPA and QBR, that DrakeMaye was similar to Drew Lock, Paxton Lynch, and Blake Bortles, would you be a little spooked? Or do you think that it doesn't matter because Justin Herbert wasn't a great statistical college quarterback, and a lot of people are saying that May reminds them of Herbert?
Look, when it comes to the numbers and statistics and analyzing who we think is going to be a good quarterback going from college to the NFL, we honestly just truly don't know. I mean, a lot of people thought Josh Allen coming out of Wyoming was going to be a bust. I know some people thought he was going to be good, but a lot of people didn't think he was going to be all that great. People thought Sam Darnold was going to be special. And people were, Bryce Young was drafted ahead of CJ Stroud. It's just, you just don't know. It's honestly, when it comes to quarterbacks being drafted at the top, I honestly just think it's a matter of luck. I really do. I understand you got to go and you got to scout, you got to look into the numbers and all that stuff. But when you're picking a quarterback at the top of the draft, it really sometimes just falls into, are you going to get lucky or not? And the Jets didn't get lucky with Zach Wilson. It sucks. But the Texans did get lucky with CJ Stroud. The Carolina Panthers look screwed with Bryce Young. But look, when it comes to DrakeMaye versus Caleb Williams, we don't know. We're recording this podcast right now in November.
Well, if the Giants have the second overall pick, they're not getting Caleb Williams. So it's essentially May versus Marvin Harrison Jr., Olufashinu, and Joe Alt. Those are the four options for the Giants.
Or if they want, or if they really just want to draft a quarterback, you could take a Michael Penix Jr. If you really want a quarterback and want your own guy, it doesn't matter if you have the second pick or the seventh pick. If the Giants determine that after this season we need to move in a different direction off of Daniel Jones and quarterback is what they need to do, then they'll draft the quarterback with the second overall pick if it's Penix Jr. or DrakeMaye, or if it's a third pick and the top two are gone. Look, you can't keep spinning in a circle when it comes to the evaluation of Daniel Jones. He's 5 years into his NFL career. He's injury prone, and he's just way below average. So it's an opportunity for Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll to truly start their era with their own quarterback. And I think that's what they're going to do, whether it's the second pick or the fourth pick or the eighth pick. They're going to have a pick very high in the 2024 NFL draft. And I think quarterback is definitely the way that they are going to go with that selection.
The Giants with a big decision to make. Another person in the NFL with a large looming decision to make is Bill Belichick. Many experts think it is the end for him in New England. A tremendous career with the Patriots so far. Some may argue the best coaching experience ever and performance ever by an NFL head coach. Belichick potentially looking to go elsewhere and continue his career as an NFL coach. Many people are saying that the Giants could potentially be an option. Remember, Belichick won 2 Super Bowls with the G-Men, with Bill Parcells as the defensive coordinator. Is it crazy for Giants fans to think that Bill Belichick could come back and be their head coach?
It's not crazy to think because look, John Mara, if he sees the potential opportunity, and it really has to be one, Bill Belichick gets let go by the New England Patriots, which is starting to look like that could happen. But this just has to be a scenario, in my opinion, where Bill Belichick has to reach out to John Mara and say, I want to coach your franchise. And then John Mara is going to have to make a very, very difficult decision. And honestly, as crazy as it sounds, if I'm the Giants, I'm not moving on from Brian Daboll. I still think he's a really good head coach.
Whoa. You are not going to move on from Brian Daboll and you think he's a really good head coach. For weeks on end for the last month, you've been saying he's overrated.
Yeah.
Fans drool over him, and they
Yeah.
shouldn't be. And now you're saying that
Mhm.
you wouldn't take Bill freaking Belichick
He's
over
old.
this guy.
Well,
What are you talking about?
well, Bill Belichick, he's 72 years old. He's not going to be your coach for the next.
But if Brian Dable's so bad, I would take a Bill Belichick that doesn't even know where he is over him.
But
in theory,
he's not that. He's not. Look, when it comes to Brian Dable, I do think that he was getting a little too overhyped and overrated, as we have kind of seen with the Giants being 2-8. But you still have to look at the fact that he led a pretty similar team last year to a 9-7-1 record and a playoff win. And
so now you're praising Brian Dable.
Yeah, I'm not firing Brian Dable. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, I'm not firing him. I think Brian Dable's a little bit overrated, but if I'm not moving on from the guy. I think
but
Brian
you
Dable
wouldn't move on for him.
No,
for the chance to get potentially the greatest NFL coach ever.
If Bill Belichick was, he's 72 years old. It's not me just being against someone. He's not going to coach for the next five plus years. And look, I consider the Giants more of a total rebuild situation. Bill Belichick, to me, he'd go coach a team that is go ready to win a Super Bowl. The Giants are nowhere near that. They have a multiple year rebuild ahead of them. As we've seen, they have not been a talented team for a number of years. And I just don't think that's the right situation for Bill Belichick. And I think Brian Dable is the right man to lead this Giants team for the next 10 plus years. I do think he's a bit overrated in terms of what people were saying about him, and people were talking about him like he was Vince Lombardi. I mean, there were people saying that when it came to Brian Dable.
Who was saying that Brian Dable was similar to Vince Lombardi?
People were overhyping him way too much. He was just getting way.
I think those people are delusional regardless. I mean, very few people are Vince Lombardi.
Exactly. But like, Brian Dable's a good coach. I'm not firing him. I look at it from, look, we're doing a new.
You say that now, and then when the Giants have another loss, you're going to say that the Giants should fire Brian Dable.
They're 2-8. They're 2-8. If they could go 2-15, I won't say to fire him. Look, we do a New York podcast. You compare the Jets and Giants. Robert Saleh stinks as a head coach. Stinks. What if Brian Dable was the head coach of the New York Jets last year and this year? It'd be so different. That's where I'm trying to say. Brian Dable's a good head coach.
Well, yeah, because Dable could actually work with a young quarterback and
look at
Josh Allen.
He could coach. I'm not firing him. I mean, that's just the answer to this question. I think Brian Dable's a bit overrated, but I'm not firing him. He deserves to be the New York Giants head coach for the foreseeable future. He's earned that right to oversee a rebuild, where I think more of the hot seat next year, going to the 2024 season, would be more on Joe Shane, because he's got to get some good players into the building for the New York Giants. The Giants have not had a talented roster the past few years. The roster last year stunk. Brian Dable.
Joe Shane is very new, though. Joe Shane's not at fault. A lot of their draft picks and a lot of their players are gentlemen.
Next year's year 3. You start getting evaluated year 3 as a GM. That's why I'm not saying he's on the hot seat right now, but if we go into the 2024 season and midway of 2024, we start looking at the Giants and be like, where are their good draft picks? Where are their good players that Joe Shane brought in? There's going to be some questions asked about him with his future moving forward. So,
I mean, he brought Kayvon Thibodeau and Deonte Banks in, both very solid defensive players.
They're not a good football team. They're not a good football team.
I don't think it's Joe Shane's fault. I think it's years of disorganization from the franchise.
They need to start looking like a good football team next year. He'll be in year 3 as GM. The roster needs to start to have some turnover and start to bring in some legitimately good players. Look, when it comes to with the Jets, we fault Joe Douglas all the time when it comes to handling the quarterback situation, but the overall 53-man roster is really freaking stacked. He's done a good job in terms of bringing in a lot of talented players and developing players with his scouting.
53-man roster, except for the offensive line, which was a mess from week 1.
If Aaron Rodgers,
they blew their one job within 4 plays. Protect Aaron Rodgers.
Well, I understand that sucks, but if Aaron Rodgers was healthy, the Jets would be one of the best teams in the NFL. If Josh Dobbs, it's where we're going off a tangent here, but if Josh Dobbs or Gardner Minshew or Jacoby Brissett are quarterbacking the Jets, they're a 6-3 team. It's just it's insane.
The point is, any QB1 for an NFL franchise would be the better option over Zach Wilson. Same with QB2s. It's what I was saying before. QB3s is where it's hard to convince that they would be better than Zach Wilson, and that just shows how bad Zach Wilson is. Mm-hmm. In one of the stranger news this year in New York sports, and as Jared and I would know, there's been a whole lot this year. Heck, what gives us constant content for our podcast. Mark Jackson was supposed to be a broadcaster for the New York Knicks, starting with a 5-game road trip this season. Then all of a sudden, it was discovered that he had some beef with a former assistant of his, who is now an assistant coach for the Knicks. As a result, Jackson will not be a broadcaster for the team. Do you buy this at all?
Who knows? I mean, it seems like, how many years has it been, Mark, since the Knicks have had some sort of embarrassing story? It's kind of been nice to see that the Knicks have been a stable franchise over the past 4 or 5 years. But look, who knows the truth behind all this stuff when it comes to Mark Jackson? Am I devastated that I'm not going to be able to hear Mark Jackson on Knicks broadcasts? No, not necessarily. I'm kind of more excited at the fact that Gus Johnson is calling Knicks games over Mark Jackson, because we all know Gus Johnson loves to say some interesting stuff on the air, but it's a bizarre story. Who knows the truth behind it all? I'm not inside the MSG Communist Party when it comes to them leaking out propaganda, but it is definitely interesting.
Is there any former Knick that you would love to see be a replacement or a fill-in for Clyde in the future?
A former Knick? Who's
doing a broadcast with Mike Breen? Someone that would be really out there with opinions and bring a lot of pizzazz to the broadcast, because I have someone in my mind.
I mean, there's 2 little guys that come to my mind. Maybe either, for some reason, I always remember this player when I went to games when I was a little kid. Moochie Norris. He was like
Why would Moochie Norris be the color comment? What is Moochie Norris up to?
Is he
alive? What I'm saying.
I hope he's honestly. I was just about to say, is he alive? I don't even know. Or maybe Nate Robinson. I don't know. One of those 2 guys. One of those 2 little guys.
What about J.R. Smith?
Oh, that'd be a good one. That'd be a great one. He would so be the type that if it's the game's a blowout in the 4th quarter, he would just start like talking to girls in the stands, like just saying, "You trying to get the pipe?" or something like that. I would pay to watch a Knick game with color commentary by J.R. Smith. I would pay for that. That would be.
Can you imagine also J.R. Smith just looking at a player that's struggling from shooting from outside the arc and just sharing that he was clubbing with him the night before? Amazing. It would be the greatest thing in the world. He wouldn't even know where he is 90% of the time.
I would. That's the guy. I couldn't even. His name just couldn't come to mind right away. But J.R. Smith, 100%, number 1 option. Yes, I would absolutely love to hear J.R. Smith talk about the modern NBA, calling some Knicks games. It'd be cool to watch.
It'd be very cool to watch, and I hope that.
I'm allowed an MSG after. I hope I'm allowed an MSG after what I just said about them.
Yeah, maybe not. Going on to our favorite topic, with it or not with it, alixearle and Braxton Berrios back together. Move over Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift. Is this couple with it or not with it?
I mean, this couple is, when it comes to the female aspect, and anything alixearle is going to do is probably going to be with it, but from a guy perspective, I think Braxton Berrios is a below average NFL player. He's a cool dude, but the problem is you're comparing this couple to Travis.
I'm not comparing.
I don't think
it was a joke move over, because obviously they're not in that stratosphere. But is this a couple that people should care about on social media?
No, because in one part, because alixearle, I mean, she's 22, 23 years old. So many people love her, but I've kind of been getting a little tired of just the content that she's been throwing out there. It's just kind of been
Because you're spending way too much time on TikTok.
it's the same content with her. That's why, I text you like, yes, I know you said when it comes to Alex Cooper, how Alex Cooper and Alex Earl are on the same team, but Alex Cooper has different content. She just comes up with different stuff. Alex Earl, it's always get ready with me to go out somewhere. She's always hiding NFL, man. She's like covering up her side. It's like we all know you've been dating Braxton Berrios for a several.
Yeah, this has been my one problem with it was she makes a reveal on Alex Cooper's live podcast that
like,
NFL man that she's dating is Braxton
we
Berrios.
know. We know.
But then what NFL games was she at? Dolphins games. She was in Germany to watch the Dolphins. She's on the sidelines. She's having a catch with people at Dolphins games. Switch it up. Go to different games. Stand on the sidelines if you want to make a big deal over who is not the NFL man. Obviously, it's Braxton Berrios. We know you were in a relationship with him. You're at Dolphins games. Can you make it any more obvious?
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Matthew Perry, for that. Could you make it more? Aside from that, Alex Earl, no one was surprised by this whatsoever. And it's such a big reveal. The Post says an article, ooh, Alex Earl and Braxton Berrios dating. Oh, come on, Sherlock. We all knew this.
Yeah, it's like we've known, and that's the thing that drives me nuts about with the whole thing with Alex Earl. It's just like we get it. You're a TikTok star, but you're not a global icon. We all know who you're dating.
She's not. Our YouTube shorts, the last time we talked about her, the views were pitiful. Pitiful.
Yeah, it's like everyone knows you're dating Braxton Berrios. And the thing also is she goes on the Alex Cooper Unwell tour and Alex Cooper asks her, do you have a boyfriend? She spins around in the circle, like delaying to say yes. You've been posting on TikTok all week, getting so lovey-dovey with him in the Bahamas. We all know. We all know. There's no shame in it. Braxton Berrios, good dude. University of Miami, shout out. Former New York Jet. I don't want to shout out the New York Jets. Fuck the Jets at this point. But shout out to the University of Miami, even though we went to Syracuse. My sister went to Miami. But
did she? I had no idea.
Well, the podcast audience had no idea. I know you did, but yes, shout out to the U. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. Alex Earl, she's still young. She's 23 years old. She's got her whole life ahead of her. Needs some new content. Need some new content if you want to become an Alex Cooper type and go on tours yourself, because the act's going to get old very quickly.
Well, if you're tired of Alex Earl content, you could continue to watch us on YouTube and YouTube Shorts. For Jarrett Least, I am Mark Weber. We're not doing a podcast. Hope everyone has a good rest of the week.